going to be an open
You're on.
Good evening and welcome to Salt Lake Baptist College, our Biblical Places class. We're in week 14. I kind of laugh about that because we're not always in the same number of weeks. We're going to be here more than our 16 weeks, mostly because we've had to take a week off here and 2 weeks off there.
Yep.
And we've got another week off coming here pretty soon. So hopefully we can keep you busy studying. In our textbook, you should be approximately page 196 in your reading. And if you are not at page 196, it's okay. But if you're there, you're going to be pretty close by the time you get your next set of reading done. I'm just going to recommend that you go on to the end of the book. There's 214 pages, I believe, something like that in the book. And you're going to find that almost everything that we've covered has a little portion in this book. It's a very good book about historical places, the historical things about these places are spelled out a lot more thoroughly than we can cover in class for the amount of you want my book, Robert?
Please. Oh, no, I got a book right up here. I didn't know you needed one, brother.
Huh.
All right.
What's the orange cover there?
There you go, Kyle. Yeah, when you're done, just give it back. We'll put it back on the shelf. I'm sure it will.
We won't spend a lot of time in the book, but that map number 16, it's the last. The maps are all in the middle. Map 16 is the last one for you folks that are at home and following us here. Map 16 has a little more detail of the city of Jerusalem than we're going to go into tonight, but it is a very good map, and hopefully you'll be able to follow our text. Today we begin a study of the city of Jerusalem. We have briefly touched on history as we journeyed through the city on our previous maps. However, now we'll cover some of its features in depth so that we can become more familiar. As we look at our map 4360-47T, and that's, if I get the map up here, that's this map that we're looking at here. This is a set of maps. There are 8 maps in here. We're on the next to the last one. And this one is entitled Jerusalem in New Testament times. And we have to also add this, that it covers the times from 20 BC, okay, that's 20 years before Christ, if you want to say that. It's actually 16 because Christ was born in 4 BC, but to 70 AD, which means 70 years into the life of our Lord, or 70 in the year of our Lord, okay, 70 AD. So it covers the times of Jesus' ministry and that of most of his disciples. A few of them went beyond that, but not too many. They got old and couldn't live much longer. Okay. Well, let's attempt to coordinate with map 16 in our text as we study this great city. Our map's introduction includes the following, and it's actually on the map up here, but I will read it to you. It's going to be difficult for you to see it on there probably. It says, King David established Jerusalem as the capital of his kingdom about 1000 BC, that's before Christ's time, after taking the city from a tribal people known as the Jebusites. While the city has grown and changed across the years, it has remained on essentially the same site as this very first city of David from the nation's past. On the large map, and we're referring to this one here, and particularly this one in this corner for the time being. Okay, it says, we find an inset that is titled David's City, 1010 BC, Ancient Jebus. Researching the name Jebus, we find the following from Unger's Bible Dictionary. Jebus is the name of Jerusalem under Jebusite control. We find it named in Joshua 15, verse 8, Judges 19, verse 10. It is also called Jebusite in Joshua 18, 16, and 28. Jebusite Jerusalem, which David captured in 2 Samuel 5, verse 8, has been shown by archaeological excavation to have been the southwest hill and to have been fortified by stout walls which have been uncovered. The Jebusite city was south of the temple area on Moriah, and it says, see Jerusalem. Now, just so that you know where this is, this little map, if we go up to this next one, right above it, up here you see Temple Mount. This is Mount Moriah. This is where they have theorized that Moses, Abraham took Isaac, okay, on Mount Moriah. This is what's now called the Temple Mount. But you'll find that Jerusalem was built on 4 hills, and you'll hear them refer in our lessons from time to time. They call this right here where it says David's City, that's this little map. It's just made smaller sitting down in here. And we're going to cover that in a little bit of depth, not a lot, but some, so that you understand when somebody reads a Bible story to you from the Bible, a lot of times you think, well, here's Jerusalem. Where's Jerusalem? And somebody answered to me the other day when I asked that question, and they said, in the Middle East. And I said, that's not very helpful. You know? Where's Jerusalem? Jerusalem is in Israel. You know, where's Israel? Well, in the Middle East. You know, because most of those people can't walk up, put their finger on a map and show you where that is. Folks, it's a serious situation. You need to know where we're talking about here. Okay? So in Joshua 15, verse 8, we mentioned some of these scriptures in our text just a minute ago. In Joshua 15, verse number 8, and the border went up by the valley of the son of Hinnom. And I should just leave this map up here for you, I think. It says, the border went up by the valley of the son of Hinnom unto the south side of Jebusite. The same as Jerusalem, and the border went to the top of the mountain that lieth before the valley of Hinnom westward. Okay, the valley of Hinnom. If you look at this map, you see right there where it says Hinnom Valley. And I think that's on, if you look, it says Valley of Hinnom on map 16 in your textbook. Right in that same place, just on the south side of the city of Jerusalem. Okay, the one in your book is a nice colored map, and it's segmented up to different developments as the city was developed. But it says the border went up to the top of the mountain that lieth before the valley of Hinnom westward. What way's west? This way, over here. Okay, there, you see there's a mountain there. Okay, and which is the end of the valley of the giants northward, what they called the valley of the giants. It says Judges 19 verse 10, it says, but the man would not tarry that night, but he rose and departed and came over against Jebus, which is Jerusalem, and there were with him 2 asses saddled. His concubine also was with him. It's just giving us a location here. We're not getting involved in the story. Joshua chapter 18 verse 16 says, and the border came down to the end of the mountain that lieth before the valley of the son of Hinnom, and which is in the valley of the giants to the north, and descended to the valley of Hinnom to the side of Jebusite on the south and descended to in Rogel. See, so they already used both Jebus and Jebusite for names for that part of the city, but that was what it was called, David's city, in the year of about 1010 BC. Okay. And Joshua 18 verse 28 says, and Zelah, Eleph, and Jebusi, which is Jerusalem, Gibeah, and Kirjath, 14 cities with their villages. This is the inheritance of the children of Benjamin according to their families. A bit of history about these Jebusites from Unger's Bible Dictionary. Jebusite, Hebrews always symbol, if always singular. If you look at the word as it's spelled out, they have it spelled out, hey, busi, and give us a number of texts here, but it says one of the Canaanitish nations who were dispossessed by Israel. What were they supposed to do to these Canaanites when they came through? When the children of Israel came through, what were they supposed to do?
Kill them.
Yeah. Supposed to kill them all, right? Well, it says dispossessed. They were chased out of where they lived, but they apparently didn't get them all killed, did they? So, because there's some that still existed here. It says, but they were dispossessed by Israel. It says, in the list of the doomed nations, the Jebusites always come last, except in Ezra 9:1, Nehemiah 9:8. But this was not because they were of no count. They were mountaineers. They were pretty stout people. It says, their city was Jerusalem, which is Jebus. Their warlike character is known by their whole history. I keep finding these things after I proofread, and I have to mark them so I can get them corrected. Their warlike character is known by their whole history. It was Adonizedek, king of Jerusalem, who raised the confederacy against Gibeon. The Jebusites were summoned to take part in the confederacy headed by Jabin, king of Hazor. The king of Jerusalem was among those smitten by Joshua in chapter 12, verse 10. Is Joshua, I believe. And from Joshua 12:7, we might infer that Israel had taken their territory. But they still retained at least their royal city. In Judges 1:21, it says, till the time of David, okay, living on the border between Judah and Benjamin, the Jebusites dwelt with Judah and with Benjamin, the children of Israel. These lands were divided up too. It says, to which tribe Jerusalem belonged. It is presumably implied that neither tribe was able to dislodge them. The only real appearance of Jebusites after this is in the story of Araunah in 2 Samuel 24, or Ornan in 1 Chronicles, Ornan the Jebusite. Nehemiah 9:8 is a historical reminiscence, and probably Zechariah 9:7, but Ezra 9:1 certainly seems to imply the existence of the Jebusites as a distinct heathen tribe. Jebusites and archaeology. I went ahead and copied this because it's a little bit interesting. It says, archaeology has shown that Jebusite Jerusalem lay on the eastern hill south of the higher ground, which in the 10th century BC became Solomon's temple area. And if we go back to our maps, it's talking about down in this corner of the city now.
Our city.
Okay. Archaeology shows that it lay on the eastern hill south of the higher ground, which in the 10th century BC became Solomon's temple area. And of course, Solomon's temple area is up here. Okay. It says the Jebusites did not select the better location because this high place above the Kidron was already occupied by a Canaanite temple. Now, where was Kidron? If you look down along this side, you see it says Kidron Valley. And we'll find this was very important to them because their source of water was right in here. Okay, where they got water for the city. The site they developed as an impregnable bastion was a tiny triangle bounded by the Kidron, Tyropoeon, and Zedek valleys. Its bold rock escarpments made it an ideal fortification site, and its water supply from the Gihon Spring made it secure. Now you see the Gihon Spring
See it right here.
right there. It says Spring Gihon.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I think it's
there.
delineated also on your book on the map there.
That's
Okay, when David
next to the pink.
took the city of Jebusites, it was named Davidsburg, or City of David, as a result of the labors of such men as Sir Charles Warren, Claremont Ganneau, Herman Goethe, F. Bliss, Captain R. Weil, John Garstang, and J.W. Crowfoot. The modern limits of the city of David have been determined. Now, those people that we read their names off are a bunch of archaeologists, people who are out digging in the ground trying to find the ancient cities. Okay?
Okay.
Portions of the Jebusite city wall and fortifications were uncovered, including the Great Western Gate. And if you look, dig around in your book a little bit, you'll find a picture of some of these places. It says, in part, these probably go back to BC 2000. Okay? Now remember, when we get up to here, we're already past that. We're at 1010 BC, so we're 1,000 years past 2000 BC already, aren't we? And it says, evidence brought to light show that the city which David captured was shaped like a large human footprint, 1,250 feet long, 450 feet wide. That's this thing right here. Okay? A total of not more than 8 acres, comparable to the same area within the walls of Tel and Neba, and the 6 acres of Canaanite Jericho. Compare 30 acres of contemporary Megiddo. We don't have a map of contemporary Megiddo to show it to you, but it would be probably as big as this square in comparison to this little area here. So all they're trying to do is give you a size comparison. However, its stout walls and elevated position, perennial water supply made it virtually impregnable. David's prowess, however, took it by storm. David came in and took this city. He broke down one of the walls and entered the city that way. It says, Numbers 13:29, the Amalekites dwell in the land of the south, and the Hittites and the Jebusites and Amorites dwell in the mountains, and the Canaanites dwell by the sea and by the coast of Jordan. So it's talking about the Canaanites. It was talking about the people that lived way over here by the Mediterranean, which is good, 30 miles on to the west. It says in Joshua 11:3, and the Canaanite on the east and on the west, to the Amorite, to the Hittite, the Perizzite, the Jebusite in the mountains, and the Hivite under Hermon in the land of Mizpah. It says, as the population of the city of Jerusalem grew, great walls were built to enclose the 4 hills upon which it was built. Now, if you're looking at your map, you can see where there could have been 4 divisions fairly easy. You got one that's pink, one that's green, one that's orange, and one that's yellow, and of course there's a purple one in there too. But those are divisions that show how the city was built in stages. The original Jebus, or Jerusalem, was built on a hill called Ophel, and if you see down in the middle of this little old map, it says Ophel. Okay. It says we see on our map a spring called Spring Gihon, and it's also known as the Virgin's Fountain, and that's right up here. And they talk about a water gate. We believe that may have been this gate here. I haven't seen it defined exactly which one it was. It says the original Jebus, or Jerusalem, was built on this hill called Ophel. Okay, and this Virgin's Fountain provided the water supply for the city. And then we have, if we go up to this next map above, we'll see this, where it says Pool of Siloam. The Pool of Siloam was used as a reservoir to save water for the city. But we find that this pool was mentioned a number of times in the New Testament. It says man's use of the Gihon Spring can be traced back to the Canaanites in the mid-Bronze Age, 1800 to 1700 BC, who diverted the flow of water through channels dug 20 feet deep. then covered the channel with slabs of stone. Now, that was pretty smart, wasn't it? They dug them a channel 20 feet deep, bring the water in, and then put slabs of stone over the top to protect that. Now, it might have been protected from invaders, might have been protected from dirt getting in their water supply. You know, it was pretty intelligent. It said the water flowed to the southern end of the city of David and collected in the upper pool of Siloam. So there's what they're telling you, that it came, Spring Gihon, you see, it shows it up here, okay, and it shows it right there. It says in the late 20th century, excavations revealed a Canaanite-era fortified passage leading from the ancient city's location to the Gihon Spring, where a fortified tower stood above the spring. This would allow residents to safely reach the spring to draw water. And in your book, there's a picture that actually shows the entrance to one of these tunnels that people could walk through to the spring Gihon to draw water. It says, without being exposed to enemy attacks. In the Israelite period, or Bronze Age as they want to call it here, it says a system of tunnels brought water from the spring to the city's well gate, where Jerusalem residents could collect water without having to leave the city walls. That'd be pretty convenient, wouldn't it? You're all walled in here, but you need to get water that's down here, and you could go through this tunnel down to that pool, collect water. And you could do it safely. So the lower pool of Siloam it talks about, it says the spring features in the biblical book of Kings as the site where Solomon was crowned king of Israel. In the book of Chronicles, we learn that during the reign of King Hezekiah, the city was threatened by the king of Assyria. Hezekiah prepared for a possible attack, reinforcing the city. In addition, he redirected the spring from the vulnerable Canaanite surface channel to an underground hewn tunnel known as the Siloam Tunnel, or Hezekiah's Tunnel. Okay, this underground channel brought water to the newly constructed Siloam Pool, or lower pool, making it possible for residents to safely access water from the pool without leaving the city walls. The reason this gets mentioned a couple of times here is because we have different sources that we brought this information in from. It says, from an inscription on the tunnel wall, we learn that Hezekiah's tunnel was dug from both ends, meeting in the middle. The Assyrian attack came in 701 BC. Okay, making sense now? We moved down from 1010, or moved down to 701 BC now. And Hezekiah's city was held under siege, but the siege failed. Throughout the siege, those within the city had water from the spring. Sometime in the 1st century BC, the Siloam Pool was reconstructed and remained in use through the Second Temple period. In the New Testament, the pool of Siloam is mentioned as the site of Christ's miracle where he healed a blind man in John 9. And after 70 AD, the pool was destroyed. Okay, Jerusalem was destroyed in 70 AD. Okay. So we can see on our map that the pool of Siloam then was established in the Kidron Valley, and we read on in the above account how Hezekiah protected this spring Gihon water and brought it into the city. Our map text alludes to the fact that David's army entered the city through a water tunnel, perhaps the forerunner of Hezekiah's tunnel, and the well gate marked Millo at the northeast side of David's city. And I don't know if you can see there's Millo. Okay, and we don't get a lot of details on this map, so we have to kind of guess at what we can. But at least we have, this is documented historical things that are written down. We know they're true. It says originally David's city was encompassed with a large wall. David had destroyed part of that wall in his conquest of the city, but later filled in the broken area to again afford perimeter protection. As the city grew, it was expanded to the area called the Lower City to the west of the Pool of Siloam, and further into the Upper City in the northeast area, adjacent to the Mount of Olives, where the Temple Mount, or Mount Moriah, is located. Then the walls were built around these areas, again for protection from invaders. Huge gates were built into these walls and were called the Damascus Gate, the Sheep Gate, the Golden Gate, or East Gate, and Zion Gate. There were several other gates through the walls established as the city grew, and Herod the Great had built a number of guard towers on the walls to watch for enemy invaders. And if you look at your map in the book, it probably has a better listing of the various gates to the city. But if you look, there's this way up here. I've got a little sticky on the map. It's kind of green,
Oh, okay.
and it's called. And I put that there because that's the Damascus Gate. That was the highway to Damascus that came through that gate. I determined that from several other maps by looking at them. It says on the west wall, we can find the palace of Herod. Okay, the palace of Herod, if you look at this area
Oh.
right in here, this is the palace of Herod, and we'll find that's more important when in the historical things that we read of when Jesus was tried before he was crucified and so forth. Things took place down in that area of the city, but you had Herod's palace. There's the upper city they talked about, the lower city.
Where? Oh, right there. Occurred. Yeah. You see, talking about Palace of Herod? Mm-hmm.
Okay, visiting the Temple Mount, Mount Moriah, and we're talking about, if you looked on a map that didn't have the city sitting on it, you'd see this would be marked as Mount Moriah, right here, or the Temple Mount. We find the site of Solomon's temple where Herod rebuilt the temple in 20 BC. Herod took pity on these poor Jews. Their temple was all broken down. And he came in there and he rebuilt the temple. And you'll find that he tried to simulate what had been in Solomon's temple before. And you see Solomon's temple, and you can see this little section in the middle here. That's what they're simulating down here.
Yeah.
And-
Oh, yeah, right there. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yellow. Yeah.
Okay, everybody find that? And what it says, the tabernacle here, the temple was designed to be like the tabernacle, okay? You see the Ark of the Covenant went down here. The Holy of Holies, the only person who could go in there was a priest. And then there was a place down in this end where they had the table to show bread and the golden candlestick and so forth. So if you look down in here, they don't show all of those things, but basically in Solomon's temple, you see the Holy of Holies. See the similarity here.
Now, where's that?
I don't know. I'm looking for it.
I don't know if you have an inset.
I don't think it's on this
Not
one.
on here.
You have a real tiny inset
Yeah,
in the middle of the city there. You can't really see real well. It's probably better on this map. But this right in here says the holy place, and there was the porch where people could gather.
Solomon's porch.
Solomon's porch, yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
yeah. Where's the altar? There, sitting out here. See?
The altar's in the middle of the white.
Yeah, and see up here in the tabernacle, it was out in here. And this is enclosed in this fence-like structure, okay? And this is a wall, of course, around here. Okay, but you see where the altar is. There's a difference in where they
Right
put the
there,
altars in the sea of bronze, which is just a big tub, right? That makes sense?
Yeah.
So just showing the similarities of how that was built. So visiting the Temple Mount, we find the site of Solomon's temple where Herod rebuilt the temple in 20 BC. Just outside this area and across the Kidron Valley is found the Garden of Gethsemane.
Yeah, I see that.
Find the
Yeah.
Garden of Gethsemane. There's Gethsemane.
Outside the yellow.
Mhm.
That's cool.
Okay, that's where Jesus went to pray.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
Opposite the Golden Gate on the Temple Mount is the Mount of Olives where Jesus was arrested.
Yeah,
There's
just
the
below.
Golden Gate
Cool.
right there.
Mhm.
There's, see it says Mount of Olives?
Yeah.
Okay, where Jesus was arrested. And then there's some more facts. It says, facts presented by our textbook tell us of Jesus' trial and sentencing. Jesus appeared before Pilate at the Praetorium, which had been located by tradition at Herod's palace on the southwest hill, okay, This is the southwest hill. See, this is the northwest hill up here.
Palace of Herod, okay.
But this is the southwest hill, and there's Herod's palace. Okay. And also at Antonia, and you see up here it says Tower of Antonia. That's Antonia they're talking about here. Adjoining
yeah,
the
right here.
temple enclosure walls.
There it is, Fortress of Antonia.
Yeah, Tower of Antonia, way up here above the temple.
Well, we see, it says fortress on our end.
Mm-hmm.
Did you find it?
Yeah.
Okay. Most authorities accept the location at Antonia mainly on the basis of French excavations under the convent of the Sisters of Zion. These folks have come in and they've built convents over some of these areas, you know, before the historical importance of the things were really blown up very big, and they claimed it as their property. It says a large stone pavement more than 150 feet square has been found in what was probably the courtyard of Antonia. Now you think 150 feet square, that's about how big it is, including the area where Bobby's sitting. She'd be sitting right in the middle of something about 150 feet square if you go from here to that wall and from here to the back wall. That's about 150 feet square. So it's not a really big piece of pavement, but to them it was, because pavement was very unusual. You didn't have very much of it. Okay, so scratched in the stones of the pavement are the diagrams of what must have been Roman games played by the idle soldiers. Here then is quite likely the palace in which John 19:13 speaks. Pilate brought Jesus forth and sat down in the judgment seat in a place that is called the pavement, but in the Hebrew Gabbatha. The sentence of death may have been pronounced on Jesus here. The present Via Dolorosa, does everybody understand what Via Dolorosa means? It's the path where Jesus carried the cross.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? And that from the site of Antonia, where Jesus was sentenced, to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Now, we don't see the Church of the Holy Sepulchre listed, but right about in here, okay, just outside this thing that's labeled second wall, here's the Tower of Antonia, okay, and so the Via Dolorosa went something like this in this area, okay. See the three crosses on the little sticky note that's right here. That's just one of the designators of approximately where Golgotha was. It says the present Via Dolorosa from the site of Antonia, where Jesus was sentenced, to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, where tradition holds that he was crucified, is more emotional than historical value. The real Via Dolorosa is deep beneath the present one and probably follows a different course. You know, as years go by, soils cover things up, and particularly in Israel, you find that you know, blowing sand and everything. They have to excavate these cities to find them and see where they are, because they're buried by that shifting sand. It says, however, this is a technicality of little consequence to the thousands of fervent pilgrims who annually bear crosses and processionals from the site of the judgment seat of Pilate by way of the Stations of the Cross to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre and traditional Golgotha. There are people in the Philippines that are called flagellantes, who have a route that simulates their Via Dolorosa, and they whip themselves with these whips that have glass in them to cut their backs, and thing that they're simulating Christ's suffering as he went through here, and they think that they're going to get absolved from their sins by doing this.
Oh.
See.
That's not happening.
So, but that's what this Via Dolorosa has been used for quite a bit of the time, back and forth between here.
They do that today?
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
they still do this today.
I do it.
Flagellants. They call them flagellants.
That's crazy.
It's penance. It's
It's
like Catholic.
Doing penance, in other words, trying to make up for your sins. Who paid for your sins?
Christ.
Jesus paid for our sins. Where did he pay? He paid on the cross of Calvary, over here on this mountain. Okay?
Oh.
He didn't say that I could pay for my sins, did he?
No, no.
No. because I couldn't do that.
No,
I couldn't afford it.
no, he wouldn't have had to die if that would have been the case.
So according to the text on our map, this account is given. The site of Jesus' crucifixion was Golgotha, or place of a skull, which may have been located just outside the northern wall of the city. The exact place is difficult to determine because of uncertainty about the precise location of Jerusalem's northern wall during this period. Likewise, scholars can only guess about the site of the tomb where Jesus was laid, somewhere outside the walls of the city. You see, from this map to the one in your book, even there are differences in where these walls actually are standing, because they don't know for sure. Okay, so there's a gate shown on the second wall on our map, and in the wall shown on the west side of the suburb on map 16 in our textbook, that leads to an area just above the Tower Pool, or Pool of Amygdalon. This is the area believed to be and is called the traditional site of Jesus' crucifixion. Some maps have this area marked with a cross on a mound, or 3 crosses on a mound, and is sometimes labeled Calvary. Do you find that?
Where is it?
Well, I have a map here where it is. Here's Golgotha.
You find,
Wow. Okay. It should
and
be
you'll
on
find
here.
there's a city gate right next to it.
But
If you
that's-
look on the, if you look for the wall where it comes down,
Uh-huh.
straight down and then stops, there's a gate right in that corner.
And then there's a cross next to it.
Yeah, and that's where
Right there.
Golgotha should be. And you
That's
also
the church
find
of
this
the
Tower
Holy
Pool,
Sepulchre.
or
Well, that's where it's at.
What's it
by
called?
there, next to
yeah,
it.
Tower Pool, right here. It's right above that, right in this area somewhere. And we're not talking about a great wide amount of area. You see this? This is 500 meters. This is about 200, about 2 football fields long, or 2 city blocks long. That's all this distance is, and that's, you know, we're talking about the whole city of Jerusalem here. If you look at that, it says 500 meters. Well, you know, from here to there is only 500 meters, about 2 blocks. Okay, basically 2 blocks. We're not talking about a great distance. The inset diagrams on the left side of our map show a minor comparison of the tabernacle that was used up until Solomon built his temple, and the diagram of Solomon's temple in lesser detail, showing the enlargements that were made and the locations of several of the fittings and utensils of those respective places of worship. This is an interesting comparison, and in our college courses here at Salt Lake Baptist College, we do have a course called the Tabernacle and the Temple, which take a full semester to cover. So you see, this can be a rather involved study that we haven't time to fully devote in our biblical places course.
Brother Mullen's going to start teaching that next quarter.
Wonderful. I got to teach that one quarter here, and it's a wonderful course. If you get an opportunity to take it, there's so much in that to learn. And Pastor Mullins is a good teacher. You want to make sure you
Love him.
get in on that. Okay. So, you see, this can be a rather involved story, and however, we do have some quick summaries that are given actually over here on our map, and I quoted them down here because I can't see that far to read it. But it says, how did I do that? There we go. I guess I'm still in the maps anyway, so we're okay. The tabernacle. This inset shows the floor plan of the tabernacle, focal point of Israel's faith during the period before the temple was completed by King Solomon. You remember, the tabernacle was made like a tent, wasn't it? It was made out of temporary things and had stakes holding the posts up, and it's kind of like our tent was at our revival. We had stakes out there with ropes and steadying all the poles so that it was fairly stationary. It says, This inset shows the floor plan, and at one end of the tabernacle was a large open court area with an altar where burnt offerings were sacrificed by the priest. At the other end stood the Holy of Holies, a section which only the covenant was only the high priest could enter, as he made atonement for the sins of the people. The Ark of the Covenant was located behind a curtain in the Holy of Holies. In Solomon's temple, in this inset, and we're talking about the bottom corner one, and I know in your books you're having to just look at that little thing on the Temple Mount that it's showing you there. But it says this inset shows the floor plan of Solomon's temple, completed about 950 years BC. It was a long, narrow structure, probably about 100 feet long by 30 feet wide. Now you think about that, that's about half the size of our sanctuary over here in the church building, right?
Okay.
How long is the church building inside there, preacher?
Inside is probably
80 feet.
80 feet
So
by,
just
by about 30.
Yeah, well, it's more than 30 feet wide.
It's 30 or 40.
I was going to say, I'd say 40.
Probably 40
Yeah.
then, yeah.
But just slightly bigger than what we're looking at over here in the church building. Okay, and we're talking about this was taking care of all the people of Israel, right? but they used their temples and their tabernacles in a different way than we use ours, didn't they? The people didn't gather and get together and sing hymns and listen to preaching like we do.
Right.
Except out here on the porch sometimes there was preaching, and then they built, of course, they built other temples around where they could do that. Solomon's temple says, like the tabernacle which preceded it, the temple contained a large open court area. One end of the open court was designated as the holy place, which any Jewish worshiper could enter. At the other end of this court stood the Holy of Holies, which the priest alone could enter. This area symbolized the invisible presence of God. Solomon's temple also contained numerous porticos and porches, which served as elaborate entrances as well as areas where sacrifices were offered by the priest. And that's, it talks about storerooms and things like that around this outside edge. It's hard telling what people built onto there. I mean, there's all kinds of things, little accessory things. It didn't access the inside of the building. It was just built up against it. But that's typical if you go in Jerusalem and see there are many, many buildings that are built like lean-tos, what we would call lean-tos here. Appropriate as closing comments for our large map is the closing of chapter 11 from our textbook. Jerusalem revolted against the Romans in AD 66. Okay, what's AD 66? If Jesus was born in 4 BC, okay, and we add 4 to 66, if Jesus had lived, he would have been 70 years old. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Just so you kind of see chronologically where we are. And the city became a hotbed of intrigue and revolution. Intramural strife among the people and leaders prepared the way for defeat by the Romans. The north wall of Agrippa I, now completed, was breached by the battering rams of the Romans with the aid of their siege towers. And the fortress Antonia was captured and occupied. Remember we were talking about Fortress Antonia, the Tower of Antonia?
Yeah.
It says the temple area became the scene of a massacre followed by the destruction of the temple itself. So now this is being destroyed. It says the entire city was plundered and burned in AD 70, and it must have seemed that not one stone remained upon another. And he tells us to compare Luke 19:43-44, which we'll read here just a minute. We pass the quote here. It says, Christians in the city are reported to have escaped to Pella. Tens of thousands of Jews perished and were thrown outside the wall into the valley of Hinnom. Valley of Hinnom. Okay? It's thrown over the wall. Jerusalem ceased to play a significant role in either Jewish or Christian history because a curse seemed to have fallen upon it with the coming of the Roman legions. Luke chapter 19, verse 43, Jesus' words, For the days shall come upon thee that thine enemies shall cast a trench about thee, and compass thee round, and keep thee in on every side, and shall lay thee even with the ground, and thy children within thee, and they shall not leave in thee one stone upon another, because thou knewest not the time of thy visitation. Surprise attack. That's what it's talking about. Here it came in and they were destroyed. Actually destroyed. Okay? And that's the end of our material for Solomon's temple. Okay? For Jerusalem, New Testament times. It's just a brief course to get you a little bit familiar with the city. If you look at the map, are there any questions about anything that we've covered so far today about the city?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So on the wall, the Valley of Hinnom,
Yes,
when
ma'am.
they threw them over, what's on the outside of the wall?
It's just a valley.
Desert, eh?
It's
So
like
they just like threw them and left them?
it's like
a
going
deep-
out
it's like
outside
a
the city here.
canyon, a
Like if
deep
you go over by
valley.
over by Dugway over in that area, how it's just kind
Okay.
of desolate.
Well, that's what I'm trying to think of.
Yeah.
It's a lot like that country over by Dugway. It's just
Several hundred feet down.
several
Oh,
hundred
my
Oh,
feet.
so they get them over.
It's a deep valley. We're looking at
Like
see
a
we're
cliff.
looking at valleys. This is built on four mountains. Okay,
Yeah.
Jerusalem was built on four mountains. The original one, this one, was sitting right here. Okay, and then they started building over here, and then eventually they built these up around, and then they built the walls around them. But if you look, you see mountaintops. These dark areas are mountaintops. These this well, it shows the dark being a valley. Okay, but the valleys and hills and what they call mountains there are not what we call mountains here.
They're hills.
We would call them
Oh.
hills. I grew up in a place. There are places in northern Nebraska that they have hills much bigger than these mountains,
Yeah.
and they're just hills.
Oh.
Okay, but the thing is these valleys, this Valley of Hinnom. If you're to see it, it's a deep valley. And in the book there, I think there may be a picture. I don't remember. It seems like there's one or two pictures.
So it became a graveyard.
Yeah, so they threw them to their death.
Yeah,
Jeez.
the idea was to
crazy.
wipe them out. Because these people that when they took over, they hated Jews. You know, Mr. Hitler hated Jews.
Yeah.
And he thought that he was like these conquering people that took over Jerusalem. He thought that he was going to do this to the whole world. He was going to eradicate all the Jews in the world. Well, guess what? He didn't succeed, did he?
No.
Why? Because who are the Jews?
Nothing to it.
They're God's
God's
chosen
people.
people.
God's people.
His
Yeah.
chosen.
Who is Adolf Hitler that thinks that he can go up against God?
Amen.
Buster.
He just can't do it.
That's
Folks,
forever.
it just doesn't happen. Okay? So that is our total class on Jerusalem in the New Testament times. I'll give you a quick preview of what's coming up next week. I'm going to move our map, and
Yeah. Yeah. No, the Bible one.
Oh. Yeah.
did I keep us in the camera there, Doc?
Go ahead and switch to your map cam and I'll move it over.
My map. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, it's
Okay, that's not too bad.
Oh,
pretty
hey,
interesting.
You got the box in.
that's a nice map.
It's a very nice map, and
Yeah.
Got it.
Is
I,
it in this book?
as I will read to you in my introduction next week, I love missionaries, and I particularly love the Apostle Paul
Yeah.
and his missionary journeys, and we were going to spend the next couple of weeks. This is our last map that we have, and I have, let's see, about 10 pages, maybe
That's
15 pages of material to cover in those weeks so that we can discuss. There are lots and lots of little cities around these journeys
I think it's pretty now.
that Paul made. It is. It's got some pretty colors. One of the things I want you to not ignore is I have this problem when I look at something that's got more than one color on it. When I look at something that's got words in red, I tend to ignore them.
Oh,
But you don't want to ignore the red words on this map because see these cities here
yeah,
that are in red?
yeah.
Those are the cities that are mentioned in the book of Revelation.
Ooh.
Oh,
Okay.
is that map in here?
No,
No.
Oh,
here we've got Paul's third journey and Paul's first journey.
If you look at the map 14,
Mm-hmm.
oh yeah,
That's
14.
his first one. And it's got all those little cities.
and you may find some interest on
I don't see any
map
writing in red on this
13.
one.
Mm-mm.
Pardon?
I don't see any writing in red on this.
No, you don't. No, you won't see it like this. This is a very interesting map. Although if you look in your Bible, you probably have a map.
I don't have one.
Don't have any on your Bible? Okay.
No, I don't have it here. I
Oh,
just got it
okay.
on my phone.
Yeah. Yeah, and these Bibles, like Bobby and Robert have, actually have a good map that has most of these missionary journeys shown on there. It also shows Paul's journey to Rome. Very interesting trip. Very interesting. We're going to have a lot of fun. This is one of my favorite passages.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully we'll have enough material to make it down to the end of our time. If not, we'll go back and review,
Sure.
you know, whatever we
So the
have.
ones in red up there are the Revelation cities? Is that what you said?
Yeah, these right in
Yeah,
here,
yeah.
they're
What
the
are
ones
they?
that are mentioned in Revelation. And
Philadelphia and
the last note down there on the bottom of the page, I let it curl up on me, but the last, let's see, if I go down here, my last page, I put a little note, I copied that on here because
this Bible doesn't have
it
that.
says, the 7 churches of Asia Minor. This map also shows the location of the 7 churches which are in Asia referred to in the book of Revelation. These churches were located in the cities of Ephesus, and one of the cities we're going to be studying next week is the city of Ephesus. And we're going to find where Ephesus is. And I'm sitting there looking at that map, and it was driving me crazy because I
You
couldn't
found it,
find
right?
Ephesus, and turns out it was one of them that had the red.
She found Ephesus over here.
Yeah.
I enlarged it for you so you can
Where's
see
it
that
at?
particular area.
Very nice.
Right here in the. You're on the wrong page.
Okay,
Really?
you go up here. Did you find Ephesus up here?
14.
Yeah, that's 14.
Okay.
It's got a purple arrow pointed right at it, Ephesus. See it?
Where's that?
A little out of focus up here on the big map, but
Yeah, it's hard to focus when I enlarge that big.
yeah, it
But I
is.
can still make it out.
Yeah, and you can find it. It's on
It's on there, yeah.
on Paul's first, second journey, Paul's third journey.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at map 14 in the book, map 14.
Yeah, I'm on 14.
That's where you find them. Well, we're done, folks. We're out of time. Doc, you can take us offline. Thank you all for your attendance and your attention tonight.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for the lecture. Yeah,
I hope you enjoyed it.
we had a good time.
That was interesting.
Well, that's good.
Following all this stuff.
All this map stuff is pretty interesting.
Sure.